The research ship Harmony's Edge moved slowly through the dark space near the edge of known territory. Captain Lee Wook stood on the bridge watching the strange structure that floated before them. It was massive, bigger than 3 Earth cities. Put together, the metal looked old and worn, but it still gave off a faint blue glow. "How long has this thing been here?" Captain Lee asked his science officer. Dr. Parkday checked his instruments again. "Hard to say, Captain. Maybe thousands of years. The materials are unlike anything we have seen before." Dr. Kim Hannah pressed her face against the viewing window. Her breath made small clouds on the glass as she studied the alien structure. As the ship's lead expert on alien life, she felt excited and nervous at the same time. This was why she had joined the deep space missions. "I can see openings in the hull," she said. "They look like they were made for something to go in and out, something big." Engineer Choi Bo joined them at the window. She was Hannah's closest friend on the ship and one of the few people who shared her love of discovery. "The power readings are strange," she said. "It's like the whole thing is still alive somehow." Captain Lee made his decision. "We go in. We stay alert." Lieutenant Song, "I want full security teams ready." Lieutenant Song Yule nodded. He was a serious man who took the safety of the crew very seriously. "Yes, sir." "Should we bring the heavy weapons?" "Bring everything," Captain Lee said. "We don't know what we might find in there." 2 hours later, the away team moved through the strange corridors of the alien structure. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, showing walls that seemed to pulse like living tissue. The air was thick and warm, and it smelled like flowers mixed with metal. Hannah walked near the front of the group, taking readings with her scanner. "The biosignatures are incredible," she whispered to Choi Bo. "Whatever built this place, they mixed living tissue with metal in ways we never thought possible." Dr. Parkday frowned as he looked at his own instruments. "The readings don't make sense. It's like the walls are breathing." They moved deeper into the structure. The corridors were huge, built for creatures much larger than humans. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing softly in patterns that seemed to shift when nobody was looking directly at them. "Captain," Lieutenant Song called from the front. "We have found something." The team gathered at the entrance to a massive chamber. Their lights could barely reach the far walls. In the center of the room, something enormous lay curled up like a sleeping cat. "Dear God," Dr. Park whispered. The creature was at least 60 meters long. Its body was covered in scales that looked like crystal, each one the size of a dinner plate. Even in the dim light, the scales caught their flashlight beams and threw back colors that had no names. Blues and greens and purples that seemed to move and flow like water. "Is it dead?" one of the security officers asked. Hannah stepped forward, her scanner working overtime. "No," she said quietly. "It's alive, very much alive." As if it heard her words, the creature began to move. The massive head lifted slowly, and 2 eyes the size of windows opened. They glowed with a soft golden light that filled the chamber. "With warmth, weapons ready," Lieutenant Song shouted. The security team raised their rifles, but Hannah held up her hand. "Wait," she said. "Look at it." The creature could have attacked them easily. It was big enough to crush them all without effort. But instead, it pulled back, making itself smaller. Its head moved low to the ground, and the golden eyes watched them with what looked like curiosity, not anger. "It's not threatening us," Hannah said. "It's being careful not to scare us." "That thing could kill us all in seconds," Dr. Park said. "We should leave now." But Lieutenant Song was nervous. When he was nervous, he made bad choices. "It might follow us to the ship," he said. "We should eliminate the threat now while we have the chance." Hannah shouted, but it was too late. The security team opened fire. Energy beams struck the creature's scales, and it cried out in pain. The sound was like nothing they had ever heard. It was deep and sad and full of hurt, but the creature did not fight back. Instead, it curled up tighter, protecting its head with its massive arms. The scales began to glow brighter, not with anger, but with what looked like fear. "Stop shooting," Hannah yelled. She ran forward, putting herself between the guns and the creature. "Dr. Kim, get back." Lieutenant Song called. "You're hurting it," she said. "Can't you see? It's not fighting back because it doesn't want to hurt us." Captain Lee held up his hand and the shooting stopped. The chamber fell quiet, except for the creature's heavy breathing. Small drops of something that might have been tears fell from its golden eyes. Hannah looked up at the massive being. Its scales were burned where the energy beams had hit. Without thinking, she reached into her medical kit and pulled out a healing spray. "Hannah, what are you doing?" Choibo asked. "What I should have done from the beginning," Hannah said. She walked slowly toward the creature, holding the medical supplies where it could see them. The golden eyes followed her movement. But the creature did not move away. When she reached the injured scales, Hannah began to spray the healing medicine on the burns. The creature made a soft sound, like a giant cat purring at the scales around. The injuries began to pulse with gentle light. "This is insane," Dr. Park muttered. "She's going to get herself killed." But the creature was very gentle. When Hannah had to reach higher injuries, it lowered its head to help her. On the uneven floor, it moved its arms slightly to steady her. As she worked, Hannah noticed something amazing. The scales were not just changing color randomly. There were patterns in the light, like a language made of colors and brightness. "Choibo," she called softly. "Bring your scanner over here." Slowly, Choibo approached carefully and began recording. "The light patterns. The changes are too regular to be random," she whispered. "It's like it's trying to tell us something." When Hannah finished treating the injuries, she stepped back. The creature looked at her for a long moment. Then the scales began to pulse in a new pattern. The lights were soft and warm, like a sunset. "I think," Hannah said quietly, "it's saying thank you." Dr. Park shook his head. "You're seeing patterns that aren't there? It's just an animal reacting to stimuli." But Hannah was not listening. She was watching the creature's eyes, and she saw something there that made her heart race with excitement, intelligence, understanding, and something that looked very much like gratitude. The creature slowly settled back down, but its eyes stayed on Hannah. The scale patterns continued to shift and change, like it was trying to learn how to talk to her. "We need to contain it," Lieutenant Song said. "Bring it back to the ship for study." "How do you contain something that big?" Choibo asked. "At the cargo bay," Captain Lee decided. "We modify the containment fields, but carefully. Dr. Kim might be right about its intelligence." As the team prepared to leave, Hannah looked back at the creature one more time. It was still watching her. The scales were still pulsing with gentle light. She had the strangest feeling that this was not just a discovery. This was the beginning of something that would change everything they thought they knew about life. In the universe, and deep in her heart, she felt something she had never expected to feel when meeting an alien creature. She felt like she had just met a new friend. 3 weeks had passed since they brought the creature aboard the Harmony's Edge. The cargo bay had been transformed into a makeshift habitat, with containment fields keeping the massive being secure. But Dr. Kim Hannah spent every free moment she had sitting just outside those energy barriers, watching and learning. The creature, which she had privately started calling Keeper, seemed to watch her just as carefully. Its golden eyes followed her movements, and the crystal scales continued their endless dance of light and color. "You're obsessed," Engineer Choibo said, as she joined Hannah for another late-night observation session. "You haven't slept properly?" In days, Hannah looked up from her portable light array, a device she had built to try copying the creature's scale patterns. "I'm not obsessed. I'm making progress. Look at this." She activated the light array, making it flash in a simple sequence of blue and white lights. Almost immediately, Keeper's scales responded with the exact same pattern, but added something new at the end. "It's mimicking you," Choibo said, though her voice held less certainty than before. "No," Hannah said excitedly. "Look, it's answering me. Watch." She repeated the original pattern, and again Keeper copied it perfectly and added the same additional sequence. Then Hannah tried the pattern with Keeper's addition included. The creature's scales brightened noticeably, and it made that soft purring sound they had heard before. "I think," Hannah said slowly, "I just said hello back." Dr. Parkday entered the cargo bay carrying his daily reports. He had been studying the creature from a safe distance, taking readings and making notes, but he refused to get close to the containment fields. "Dr. Kim," he said formally, I need to discuss your behavior with you. Hannah sighed. She knew this conversation was coming. What about my behavior? You're spending too much time with the creature? Becoming emotionally attached to what is essentially a very large, very dangerous animal. It's not an animal, Hannah said firmly. It's intelligent. More intelligent than we first thought? Dr. Park pulled up his datapad. My scans show a brain structure unlike anything we know. It's complex, but complexity doesn't equal intelligence. A computer is complex too. Keeper's scales suddenly shifted to a deep red pattern that pulsed slowly. Hannah had seen this pattern before when the creature seemed upset or frustrated. You see, she said, it understands when we talk about it. It knows we're discussing whether it's intelligent or not. Coincidence, Dr. Park said. But he took a step back from the containment field. Over the following days, Hannah worked harder to establish communication. She created more complex light patterns and was amazed when Keeper not only copied them but began creating its own sequences. Some patterns seemed to represent emotions: warm golds for happiness, cool blues for sadness, sharp reds for warning or anger. But it was during one late-night session that Hannah made her biggest breakthrough. She had been showing Keeper images on her tablet, pictures of Earth, of humans, of the stars they had traveled past. The creature watched with obvious interest, its scales shifting through gentle patterns of curiosity. Then Hannah showed it a picture of her family back on Earth, her parents, her sister, her niece. As she looked at the photo, feeling homesick and lonely, Keeper's scales suddenly changed to a pattern she had never seen before. The lights were complex, layered, and they seemed to tell a story. As Hannah watched, she began to see images in her mind. It's not her own thoughts, but something else. Someone else's memories. She saw a world covered in crystal cities that reached toward the sky like frozen music. She saw beings like Keeper, but smaller, moving through gardens of light that grew like plants but sang like songs. She saw families of the crystal-scaled creatures caring for their young, building beautiful things together. And then she saw the darkness coming. The vision ended abruptly. Hannah found herself on her hands and knees, breathing hard. Keeper was pressed against the containment field, its eyes filled with what looked like concern. Hannah Choi Bo rushed to her side. What happened? Whispered. It showed me its home, its family. She looked up at Keeper, and understanding passed between them like electricity. The creature had shared its memories, its deepest thoughts with her. It had trusted her with its most precious possessions, the memories of a world that no longer existed. You're alone, Hannah said softly to Keeper. Like I am, so far from home. But you lost your family forever, didn't you? Keeper's scales dimmed to a soft, sad blue that made Hannah's heart ache. The next morning, Captain Lee Wook called a meeting in the main conference room. The entire senior staff gathered around the table, but Hannah could barely focus on what they were saying. Her mind was still full of Keeper's memories. Earth Command wants a full report, Captain Lee was saying. They're particularly interested in the creature's potential military applications. Military applications. Hannah looked up sharply. Dr. Park nodded. Creature that size with apparent energy manipulation abilities could be very useful in combat situations. Admiral Shinrock has sent specific orders, Captain Lee continued. We're to run combat readiness tests. See how the creature responds to threats, how it fights, what weapons it might possess. No, Hannah said firmly. Absolutely not. Captain Lee said patiently, this isn't a discussion. These are orders. You don't understand, Hannah said, standing up. Keeper isn't a weapon. It's a person. It has thoughts, feelings, memories. It had a family once. Keeper. Dr. Park raised an eyebrow. You've named it. Its people were guardians, Hannah continued, ignoring the question. They protected other species, weaker ones. They were destroyed by something terrible, something they called the endless hunger. Keeper is probably the last of its kind. Lieutenant Song Yul looked skeptical. How could you possibly know all that? Told me, Hannah said simply. The room fell silent. Dr. Park was the first to speak. Dr. Kim, I think you need to take some time away from the creature. Your emotional attachment is affecting your judgment. My judgment is fine, Hannah said angrily. It's your fear that's affecting yours. Captain Lee held up his hand. Enough, Dr. Kim. I'm ordering you to take a break from your research, Dr. Park. We'll take over observations for the next week. You can't do this, Hannah said. I can, and I am. You're too close to this, Hannah. You're starting to think of this creature as family. The word hit Hannah like a physical blow, mainly because it was true. In the short time she had known Keeper, she had begun to feel protective of it, caring for it in a way that went beyond scientific curiosity. Maybe I am, she said quietly. Maybe. That's not a bad thing. She left the conference room and went straight to the cargo bay. Keeper was waiting for her, and the moment it saw her upset expression, its scales shifted to concerned patterns of gold and green. They want to hurt you, she told Keeper. They want to see if you can be used as a weapon. Keeper's scales darkened, but not with anger, with sadness. Through their growing connection, Hannah felt its response. It had been feared before by people who didn't understand. It was tired of being seen as a monster when all it wanted was to protect and care for others. I won't let them, Hannah promised. I don't know how yet, but I won't let them turn you into something you're not. That night, as Hannah sat by the containment, Field Keeper did something it had never done before. Pressed one massive hand against the energy barrier, as close to her as it could get. Then its scales began to pulse in a pattern Hannah recognized from the family photos she had shown it. It was the pattern for family, for belonging, for love. And Hannah realized that Captain Lee was right about one thing. She was starting to think of Keeper as family. But that wasn't weakness or delusion. It was the beginning of something beautiful, even if the rest of the crew couldn't see it yet. Dr. Kim Hannah sat in the medical bay while Dr. Lim Na ran another scan on her brain. The medical officer looked worried as she studied the results on her screen. The neural pathways in your brain are changing, Hannah, Dr. Lim said quietly. The connections are becoming more complex, almost like new parts of your brain are growing. Is that bad? Hannah asked, though she already suspected the answer. I don't know. Nothing like this has ever happened before. The changes started 3 days ago, right after you said the creature shared its memories with you. Hannah touched the side of her head. She could feel something different there, a warmth that hadn't been there before. Sometimes she caught herself knowing things she hadn't learned, feeling emotions that weren't quite her own. Dr. Park wants to separate you from the creature immediately, Dr. Lim continued. He thinks it's doing something dangerous to your mind. Not dangerous, Hannah said firmly. It's beautiful. I can sense Keeper's feelings now, even when I'm not near it. Right now it's lonely and confused because I haven't visited today. Dr. Lim frowned. That's exactly what worries me. You shouldn't be able to sense anything from that creature when you're on a different deck. But Hannah was no longer listening. Through their connection, she felt something new from Keeper. Fear. Not the gentle sadness she had grown used to, but sharp, urgent fear. Something's wrong, she said, jumping up from the medical bed. Hannah, wait! Dr. Lim called, but Hannah was already running toward the cargo bay. She found a crowd gathered outside the containment area. Captain Lee Wook stood with Dr. Park Day and Lieutenant Song Yul, all of them staring at Keeper with concern. The massive creature was pressed against the far wall of the cargo bay, scales flashing in rapid patterns of red and gold. It kept looking toward the ceiling as if it could see something beyond the ship's hull. What's happening? Hannah asked as she pushed through the crowd. It started acting strange about an hour ago, Captain Lee said. The scale patterns are unlike anything we've recorded before. Hannah moved closer to the containment field. Immediately, Keeper's attention focused on her. She felt a rush of images and emotions through their connection. Darkness, cold, that froze the soul. Ships that looked like they were made from shadows and death and hunger. Endless, terrible hunger that consumed everything it touched. They're coming, Hannah whispered. What? Dr. Park stepped forward. What did you say? Hannah pressed her hand against the containment field. Keeper moved as close as it could, and suddenly the connection between them grew stronger. More images flooded her mind. She saw space battles that stretched across entire star systems. She saw worlds stripped bare of life, their surfaces turned to gray dust. She saw creatures like Keeper fighting desperately against an enemy that seemed to eat light itself. The Void Hunters, she said, the name coming from Keeper's memories. The ones who destroyed its world. They're coming here. It's impossible, Dr. Park said. Long-range sensors show nothing unusual. But even as he spoke, Lieutenant Song's communication device began beeping urgently. He answered it quickly. Bridge to Lieutenant Song. We're detecting unusual readings on the edge of our sensor range. Ships of unknown design approaching at high speed. Captain Lee's face went pale. How long until they reach us? Estimated arrival in 6 hours, sir? Cargo bay fell silent, except for Keeper's urgent light patterns. Through their connection, Hannah felt the creature's desperate desire to communicate something important. It's trying to warn us, she said. It knows these enemies. It fought them. Before? Even if that's true, Dr. Park said, what can one creature do against an entire fleet? Hannah closed her eyes and opened her mind fully to Keeper's memories. What she saw made her gasp. Keeper hadn't just been a guardian. It had been a commander, leading fleets of its people against the Void Hunters. She saw battles where Keepers, kind, had protected entire civilizations, using abilities that seemed to bend the laws of physics. But she also saw the final battle. The day Keeper's world died. The day its family was consumed by the endless hunger of their enemies. Keeper wasn't just any guardian, Hannah said, opening her eyes. It was their leader, their greatest warrior. And it's been carrying the guilt of its people's destruction for thousands of years. Guilt? Captain Lee asked. Through their connection, Hannah felt Keeper's deepest pain. It thinks it failed them. It thinks it should have found a way to save its world, its family. That's why it's been alone all this time. It doesn't believe it deserves to have a family again. Keeper's scales shifted to the deep blue of profound sadness, confirming her words. Dr. Park shook his head. This is all speculation based on hallucinations caused by alien influence on your brain. Then explain how it knew the ships were coming. Before our sensors detected them, Hannah shot back. An uncomfortable silence filled the cargo bay. Even Dr. Park couldn't argue with that. Captain Lee made a decision. Dr. Kim, I need you to try to communicate with the creature. Find out everything you can about these Void Hunters. Their weaknesses, their tactics, anything that might help us. Sir, Lieutenant Song interrupted. Shouldn't we contact Earth Command for backup? The nearest military ships are 3 days away, Captain Lee said grimly. We're on our own. Hannah approached the containment field again. This time, when she placed her hand against the energy barrier, Keeper pressed its massive hand against the same spot from the other side. The connection that formed was stronger than anything they had shared before. Hannah felt like she was falling into an ocean of memories, experiences, and knowledge that spanned millennia. She saw the Void Hunters as they truly were. Not just destroyers, but parasites that fed on the life force of entire worlds. They didn't just kill their enemies, they absorbed them. Growing stronger with each victory, she learned about their ships, which were grown rather than built, alive in a horrible way that made them nearly impossible to destroy with conventional weapons. She discovered their weakness: they couldn't handle certain energy, frequencies that disrupted their connection to their consumed victims. But most importantly, she felt Keeper's deep knowledge of war, strategy, and protection. The creature had spent thousands of years learning how to fight these enemies. It knew their patterns, their methods, their fears. When the connection ended, Hannah staggered backward, her head spinning with newfound knowledge. They consume life energy, she said breathlessly. That's how they power their ships, their weapons, everything. But there's a frequency that disrupts their feeding process. If we can generate the right energy signature, how do you know all this? Dr. Park demanded. Because Keeper taught me, Hannah said simply. It's been fighting these things since before humans existed. It knows how to beat them. Captain Lee looked between Hannah and the massive creature. Can it help us fight them? Through their connection, Hannah felt Keeper's response. Determination. Mixed with protective fury, after thousands of years alone, it had found something worth protecting again. It had found a new family. It wants to protect us, Hannah said. but it's scared. The last time it fought these enemies, everyone it cared about died. She looked directly at Keeper, speaking both aloud and through their mental link. You're not alone anymore. We're family now, and families protect each other. Keeper's scales brightened to a warm gold, and for the first time since they had found it, the creature stood to its full height. Even contained behind energy barriers, it was magnificent and terrible to behold. Dr. Kim, Captain Lee said urgently, ask it what we need to do. But Hannah was already receiving the answer through their connection. Images of modifications to the ship's systems, ways to generate the disrupting frequency, tactics for fighting an enemy that fed on death itself. It has a plan, she said. But first, we need to let it out of containment. Absolutely not, Dr. Park said immediately. It can't help us from inside a cage, Hannah argued. And in 5 hours, when those ships arrive, we're going to need all the help we can get. Captain Lee stared at the massive creature for a long moment. Then he looked at his crew, at the people who were counting on him to get them home safely. Release the containment fields, he ordered. Sir Lieutenant Song protested. That's an order, Captain Lee said firmly. As the energy barriers dissolved, Keeper remained perfectly still. It looked at each human in turn, then fixed its golden eyes on Hannah. Through their connection, she felt its promise. It would protect them, all of them, because they were family now, and family was worth fighting for. The bridge of the Harmony's edge was filled with tense silence as the crew watched their long-range sensors. Captain Lee Wook stood behind the main console, his hands gripping the back of the operator's chair so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Contact in 30 minutes, Pilot Kim Tae announced, his young voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Dr. Kim Hana stood near the back of the bridge, her mind still connected to keep her down in the cargo bay. Through their link, she could feel the ancient creature's growing anxiety. It remembered these enemies too well. What are we looking at? Captain Lee asked, as the first shapes appeared on the main screen. The Void Hunter ships were unlike anything the humans had ever seen. They looked like they had been grown rather than built, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Each ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Harmony's edge, and they moved through space with an unnatural fluid grace. 12 ships, Lieutenant Song Yul reported. And Captain, our weapons readings show they have no effect on those hulls. Engineer Choibo looked up from her station, her face pale. The energy signatures are impossible. It's like they're made of living darkness. Through her connection with Keepa, Hannah felt a surge of old memories. She saw these same ships attacking. Keeper's homeworld watched as they drained the life from entire cities in minutes. They don't just destroy, she said quietly. They consume, eat the life energy of everything they touch, and use it to make themselves stronger. Dr. Parkday, who had been silent until now, turned to face her. How could you possibly know? That, because Keeper is showing me, Hannah replied. It remembers fighting them before. On the screen, the Void Hunter ships began to spread out, forming a perfect circle around the human vessel. It was a hunting formation that Keeper recognized from bitter experience. They're surrounding us, Captain Lee observed unnecessarily. Standard Void Hunter tactic, Hannah said, speaking with knowledge that wasn't quite her own. They trap there. Prey, then slowly drain the life from it. They like to feed slowly to savor the fear. Suddenly, the ship's lights began to flicker. The temperature on the bridge dropped noticeably, and several crew members shivered. What's happening to our power? Captain Lee demanded. Choibo worked frantically at her console. They're doing something to our energy systems. The power is being drawn away from us, but I can't tell where it's going. Through her link with Keeper, Hannah felt the creature's urgent alarm. They've started feeding, she said. They're draining our ship's power to weaken us before they attack. Down in the cargo bay, Keeper began to move. The massive creature positioned itself near the center of the room, and its scales began to glow with a bright inner light. Hannah felt its determination through their connection. Keeper is trying to help, she announced. It's using its energy to protect our power systems. For a moment, the ship's lights stabilized. But the effort was costing Keeper greatly, and Hannah could feel it strain through their bond. It can't keep this up forever. She warned Captain Lee opened a communication channel to Earth Command, but only static came through. "They're jamming our communications," he said grimly. Sir Kimte called from the pilot station, the nearest. "Earth ships are still 2 days away. We're completely on our own." The first Void Hunter ship moved closer, and as it approached, the hull of the Harmony's Edge began to change. Where the alien ship's shadow fell, the metal started to turn dark. "An organic-looking, they're converting our hull," Choibo said in horror, "turning it into part of their ship." Hannah closed her eyes and reached out to Keeper through their mental link. What she felt back was a mixture of old pain and new determination. Keeper had failed to save its own people, but it would not fail to save its new family. Through their connection, Keeper began sharing its battle knowledge with her. She saw how the Void Hunters fought, how they fed, and most importantly, how they could be stopped. "The frequency disruptor," she said suddenly, opening her eyes. "Keeper knows how to build it, but it needs access to the ship's main power grid." "That would mean letting it into the engine room," Lieutenant Song said. "Sir, I don't think that's wise. We don't have a choice," Captain Lee decided. "Dr. Kim, can you guide the creature to engineering?" "I don't need to guide it," Hannah said. "Through our link, Keeper can see everything I see, knows the layout of our ship as well as I do now." The massive creature began moving through the corridors of the ship. Its size meant it had to squeeze through doorways and crawl through passages that were never meant for something so large. But it moved with surprising grace, careful not to damage anything important. As Keeper made its way toward engineering, the Void Hunter ships moved closer. The conversion of the hull was spreading, and sections of the ship were starting to look more like living tissue than metal. "Hull breach in Section 7, Choibo reported. "The converted areas are losing structural integrity." In the engineering section, Keeper reached the main power core. Creature placed its massive hands on the energy conduits and began to work. Through their connection, Hannah could feel what it was doing, reshaping the ship's energy systems, turning them into something that could generate the frequency that disrupted Void Hunter feeding. But the work was dangerous. The energy levels Keeper was manipulating could kill any normal creature instantly. Hannah felt the creature's pain as the raw power burned through its body. "It's hurting itself," she said, tears streaming down her face. "The energy is too much, but it won't stop." On the main screen, the closest Void Hunter ship suddenly pulled back. Something about the changing energy signature of the human ship was making it uncomfortable. "It's working," Captain Lee said with amazement. "Whatever that creature is doing, it's working." But their relief was short-lived. The other Void Hunter ships began moving in a new pattern, one that Keeper recognized with growing dread. Through their link, Hannah felt the creature's alarm. "They're changing tactics," she announced. "They're going to attack all at once. Try to overwhelm us before Keeper can finish the modifications." The first energy blasts hit the ship's shields, causing the entire vessel to shake. Harmony's Edge was not a warship, and its defenses were never meant to handle this kind of assault. "Shields at 60%, Kimte reported as another wave of energy blasts struck them. In engineering, Keeper worked faster, ignoring the pain as the ship's power systems burned through its crystal scales. The creature's determination was absolute. It would complete the modifications or die trying. "Shields at 30%, came the next report. Hannah could feel Keeper's struggle through their connection. The ancient warrior was pushing itself beyond its limits, drawing on reserves of strength and knowledge built up over thousands of years of battles.
"Almost there,"
she said, though she wasn't sure if she was speaking to the crew or to Keeper. The ship shook again as more weapons fire struck their weakening defenses. Through the main screen, they could see the Void Hunter ships positioning themselves for a final killing blow. "Shields at 10%, Kimte announced. "One more hit and we're defenseless." In that moment, Keeper completed its work. The ship's power grid suddenly sang with a new kind of energy, one that made the approaching Void Hunter ships recoil as if they had been burned. But the effort had cost Keeper dearly. Through their link, Hannah felt the creature collapse in the engineering section, its strength nearly spent. "The frequency disruptor is online," Choibo announced with excitement. "The Void Hunters are pulling back." But Hannah's celebration was tempered by what she felt through her connection with Keeper. The creature was badly injured, possibly dying. and the battle was far from over. Through their link, Keeper shared one last piece of knowledge with her. The disruptor would keep the Void Hunters from feeding, but it wouldn't stop them from attacking. If they wanted to survive, they would have to fight. And for that, Keeper would need to do something it hadn't done in thousands of years. It would need to trust others with its pain, its power, and its love. The real battle was about to begin. The Void Hunter ships regrouped outside the range of the frequency disruptor, their dark holes pulsing with angry red lights. Captain Lee Wook watched them through the main screen, knowing that their brief moment of safety was about to end. Adapting, Dr. Kim Hannah said from her position near the back of the bridge. Through her connection with Keeper, she could feel the ancient creature's growing concern. Keeper says they always find a way around defenses eventually. Down in the engineering section, Keeper struggled to stand. The massive creature's crystal scales were cracked and burned from the energy work it had performed. But through their mental link, Hannah felt its determination burning stronger than ever.
Ow.
New contacts on sensors, pilot Kim Tae announced. More Void Hunter ships coming out of hyperspace. The main screen showed 6 additional ships materializing in space around them. Each one was larger than the original attackers, their hulls so dark they seemed to eat the starlight itself. 18 ships total, Lieutenant Song Yul reported, his voice tight with worry. Sir, even with the frequency disruptor, we can't fight that many. Engineer Choi Bo looked up from her console with desperate eyes. Captain, our weapons couldn't scratch one of their ships. How are we supposed to fight 18? Through her connection with Keeper, Hannah felt something change. Duh. Creature's pain was still there, but it was being pushed aside by something much stronger. Ancient memories were awakening, battle instincts that had been sleeping for thousands of years. Keeper once out of the ship, Hannah announced suddenly.
What? Dr. Parkday stared at her in shock. That's impossible. Nothing can survive in space.
Without protection, Keeper's people were space dwellers, Hannah explained, knowledge flowing through their link. They could live in the vacuum, fight in it. That's how they protected other species for so long. Captain Lee hesitated. Releasing the creature into space seemed like madness, but they were running out of options fast. The cargo bay has emergency airlocks, he said finally. But if we're wrong about this, we're not wrong, Hannah said firmly. Trust me, trust Keeper. Down in the engineering section, Keeper began moving toward the cargo bay. Each step was painful, but the creature pushed forward with grim determination. Through their link, Hannah felt its thoughts and memories mixing with her own. She saw the last great battle of Keeper's people, when they had made their final stand against the Void Hunters. She felt the creature's grief at watching its family die, and its guilt at being the only survivor. But she also felt something new. Hope. For the first time in thousands of years, Keeper had people to protect again. It had a family worth fighting for. The first wave of Void Hunter attacks came without warning. Energy beams that could slice through planets struck the Harmony's edge, but the frequency disruptor held them back.
Ow.
The weapons lost most of their power when they hit the ship's modified shields. Minimal damage, Choi Bo reported with relief. The disruptor is working. But Hannah felt Keeper's alarm through their connection. That was just a test, she warned. They're learning how our defenses work, and the cargo bay Keeper positioned itself in front of the main airlock. The creature looked back once toward the bridge, and through their link, Hannah felt its message clearly. It was ready. Open the airlock, Captain Lee ordered. The massive doors slid open and space rushed in to meet them. But Keeper didn't get sucked out like the humans expected. Instead, the creature seemed to flow out into the vacuum like it was swimming in water. On the main screen, they watched in amazement as Keeper expanded to its full size in the emptiness of space. The creature was even larger than they had realized, nearly as big as one of the smaller Void Hunter ships. Its crystal scales caught the light of distant stars and threw it back in brilliant patterns. It's beautiful, Kim Tae whispered. The Void Hunter ships reacted immediately to Keeper's presence. Their formations shifted, and weapons that had been aimed at the human ship turned toward the ancient guardian. Through their connection, Hannah felt Keeper's grim satisfaction. After thousands of years, It was facing its enemies again. This time, it wasn't fighting alone. This time it had a family depending on it. The first Void Hunter ship attacked with weapons that could destroy moons. Energy beams lanced through space toward Keeper, each one carrying enough power to vaporize a city. But something impossible happened. When the beams hit Keeper's scales, they simply stopped. The energy was absorbed, stored, and then redirected back at the attacking ship with twice the original force. The Void Hunter ship that had fired the first shot was destroyed instantly. "How is that possible?" Dr. Park gasped. "Through their link." Hannah understood. Keeper's people evolved to fight these enemies, she explained. Their scales can absorb and redirect energy. The more power the Void Hunters use, the stronger Keeper becomes. The remaining Void Hunter ships attacked all at once, filling space with enough destructive energy to sterilize a solar system. But Keeper was ready for them. The ancient Guardian's scales blazed with absorbed power as it moved through the energy storm like a dancer moving through rain. Every attack made it stronger, every weapon only fed its growing strength. But Hannah could feel the strain through their connection. Keeper was powerful, but it was still badly injured from modifying the ship's systems. Fighting 18 ships at once was pushing it beyond its limits. One of the larger Void Hunter ships managed to get close enough to try its feeding attack. Dark tendrils of energy reached out toward Keeper, trying to drain its life force like they had done to countless worlds. Through their link, Hannah felt Keeper's pain as the tendrils made contact. The ancient creature's strength began to fade as the Void Hunter ships started to feed. "It's in trouble," Hannah announced to the bridge. "Crew, the feeding attack is working." Without thinking, Hannah opened her mind completely to their connection. She felt her own life energy flowing through the link to Keeper, supporting the ancient guardian with human determination and will. But it wasn't enough. Even with her help, Keeper was weakening against the overwhelming numbers of enemies. That was when the other members of the crew made their choice. "I want to help too," Choibo said, moving to stand beside Hannah. "And me," added Kim Tae. One by one, the crew members joined Hannah, each one offering their support to Keeper through the neural link she had established. Even Dr. Park, who had doubted Keeper's intelligence from the beginning, stepped forward. To add his strength, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Keeper's scales blazed with new light as it felt the support of its adopted family flowing through the connection. The Void Hunter ship that had been feeding on it was suddenly thrown back by a surge of power it couldn't absorb through the link. Keeper felt something it hadn't experienced in thousands of years. It felt loved. It felt the strength that came from having people who believed in it, who trusted it, who considered it family. The ancient guardian's true power awakened. Keeper began to grow larger, scales shifting into new patterns that none of them had seen before. Energy crackled around its massive form as it drew on the love and support of its human family. What happened? Next would be remembered in the records of both species forever. Keeper began to sing. The sound had no words, but it carried across space. Itself, reaching into the hearts of everyone who heard it. It was a song of protection, of family, of love that transcended species and time. And as Keeper sang, the Void Hunter ships began to retreat. For the first time in their existence, the endless hunger had encountered something it could not consume. The song of a guardian protecting its family. Keeper's song filled the emptiness of space with power that the Void Hunters had never encountered before. The massive alien ships, which had consumed countless worlds, began to pull back from the ancient guardian as if they had been burned. Dr. Kim Hana felt the song through their neural connection, and it brought tears to her eyes. It was not just sound, but pure emotion made real. Love, protection, determination, and hope all woven together into something that touched the deepest parts of the soul, through the mental link that now connected all. The crew members to Keeper, each human felt the song differently. Captain Lee Wook felt the weight of command lifted from his shoulders as he experienced what it meant to have someone else share the burden of protecting others. Engineer Choi Bo felt the warmth of belonging, of being part of something larger than herself. Even Dr. Park Day, who had spent weeks insisting that Keeper was just an animal, felt his scientific mind opening to possibilities he had never imagined. Through the connection, he experienced Keeper's vast intelligence and realized how wrong he had been. In space, Keeper continued to grow larger as the crew's support flowed through their link. The Ancient Guardian was now nearly as big as the largest Void Hunter ship, its crystal scales blazing with inner fire that lit up the darkness between stars. But the Void Hunters were not giving up easily. The largest of their ships, a massive creature that looked like a living nightmare, moved forward to challenge Keeper directly. "That's their command ship," Hannah said, knowledge flowing through their connection. "The one that destroyed Keeper's homeworld." Through the link, the crew felt Keeper's sudden surge of old pain and anger. This was the ship that had killed its family, that had consumed everything the Guardian had ever loved. The command ship attacked with weapons that warped space itself, trying to tear Keeper apart at the atomic level. But the Ancient Guardian was ready, drawing on the love and support of its human family. Keeper began to fight with tactics that combined its ancient knowledge with human creativity. Instead of simply absorbing the attack, Keeper redirected it back at the other Void Hunter ships, using their own command ship's weapons against them. 2 of the smaller vessels were destroyed instantly. "Brilliant," Dr. Park whispered, his scientific mind marveling at the strategy. But the battle was taking its toll. Through their connection, the crew could feel Keeper's exhaustion. The ancient creature had been badly injured during the ship modifications, and now it was fighting the most dangerous enemy in the universe. Hannah made a decision that terrified her but felt absolutely right. She opened her mind completely to Keeper, not just sharing her strength, but merging her thoughts. With the Guardian's consciousness, the effect was immediate and overwhelming. Suddenly, Hannah could see through Keeper's eyes, feel its massive body moving through space, experience its battle instincts honed over thousands of years of warfare. But more than that, she could guide those instincts with human intuition and tactical thinking. Together, it became something greater than either could be alone. The combined consciousness of human and Guardian began to systematically destroy the Void Hunter fleet. Where Keeper's ancient power provided the strength, Hannah's quick thinking provided the strategy. They moved through space like a force of nature, unstoppable and precise. One by one, the Void Hunter ships fell. Their feeding weapons, which had consumed entire civilizations, were useless against an enemy that fought with love instead of hatred. The command ship made one final, desperate attack. It opened its core and released all the life energy it had, stolen from countless worlds, trying to overwhelm Keeper with pure destruction. Through their connection, the crew felt Keeper's pain as the stolen life force struck it. This wasn't just energy, it was the screams of billions of beings who had been consumed by the endless hunger. But instead of being destroyed by the attack, Keeper did something unexpected. The Ancient Guardian began to absorb the stolen life force, not to use as a weapon, but to set it free. Through the neural link, Hannah felt what Keeper was doing. The Guardian was releasing the trapped souls, giving them peace at last. The life energy that had been used for destruction was transformed into something beautiful and healing. The command ship, drained of its stolen power, began to collapse in on itself. The Void Hunter fleet, seeing their greatest weapon defeated, finally retreated into hyperspace. But the effort had cost Keeper everything. The Ancient Guardian began to fall toward the nearby planet, its massive body no longer responding to its will. Keeper. Hannah screamed through their connection, working together through their link. The entire crew began to use their combined will to support the fallen Guardian. They couldn't stop Keeper from falling, but they could guide where it landed. The massive creature came down in the ocean of the planet below, sending waves as tall as mountains racing toward the shore. But it was alive. 3 days later, Dr. Limnoff finished her medical examination of Hannah in the ship's medical bay. The neural changes in Hannah's brain had stabilized, creating permanent pathways that would always connect her to Keeper. She'll never be completely human again, Dr. Lim said gently. The connection has changed you on a fundamental level. Hannah smiled as she felt Keeper's presence in her mind, warm and comforting like a gentle hand on her shoulder. I wouldn't want to be completely human, she said. Being part of Keeper's family is better. On the bridge, Captain Lee Wook received a message from Earth Command. Admiral Shinrock appeared on the main screen, his face showing a mixture of amazement and greed. Captain Lee, the Admiral said, "We've reviewed your reports. This creature could be the ultimate weapon. We're sending a fleet to secure it immediately." "With respect, Admiral," Captain Lee replied, "Keeper isn't a weapon. It's a member of our crew and our family." "That creature nearly died protecting us," Engineer Choi Bo added from her station. "We're not letting anyone turn it into a tool for war." The Admiral's face darkened. "That's not your decision to make, Captain." Actually, Dr. Parkday interrupted. "It is." The scientist who had once doubted Keeper's intelligence now stood firmly with his crewmates. "According to Earth law, any being that demonstrates intelligence and free will has the right to citizenship. Keeper has more than demonstrated both." Through the ship's communication system, they heard a sound that made them all smile. It was Keeper's song rising from the ocean below, carried by the planet's atmosphere to their ship in orbit. The song was different now. Instead of the battle cry they had heard during the fight, this was a lullaby. A song of contentment, of belonging, of family. 6 months later, Hannah stood on the observation deck of the new research station they had built on the planet's largest continent. Through the massive windows, she could see Keeper resting in the warm shallows of the nearby bay. The ancient guardian had recovered from its injuries, but it showed no desire to leave. This planet, with its new human colony and research facilities, had become home. Other Guardian signatures had been detected throughout the galaxy. Kiana was leading the expedition to find them, but they wouldn't be forced into service or turned into weapons. They would be offered what Keeper had found: family, belonging, and a purpose that came from love instead of duty. Dr. Parkday approached, carrying a datapad with the latest reports. "The first contact team has found 3 more Guardians," he said. "They're alone, like Keeper was? Wandering through space with no purpose?" "Not for long," Hannah said, feeling Keeper's happiness through their permanent connection. "Everyone deserves a family." Choi Bo joined them at the window, grinning as she watched Keeper play with a group of local sea creatures that had adopted the massive Guardian as their protector. "You know," she said, "when you first said that thing was family, I thought you were crazy." "I was crazy," Hannah admitted. "Crazy enough to believe that family doesn't have to look like you or even come from the same planet. Crazy enough to think that love can be stronger than fear." Through their connection, she felt Keeper's gentle amusement and deep contentment. The ancient Guardian had spent thousands of years alone, carrying the guilt of its people's destruction. But now it had something worth living for again. Captain Lee walked up to join them, a letter in his hand. "Earth Command has officially recognized Keeper as the first non-human citizen of the Earth Federation," he announced. "Full rights and protections under the law." "About time," Hannah said. As the sun set over their new world, Keeper's song drifted across the water to the research station. It was a song of gratitude, of joy, and of love that transcended species and time. The humans had given Keeper a family. In return, the ancient Guardian had given them something even more precious: the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and that love could bridge any gap, no matter how wide. In the distance, more signals appeared on their long-range sensors, or Guardians, alone and lost, waiting to be found. The family was about to get much bigger, and in a universe full of dangers and wonders, there was no better protection than the love of family, no matter what form that family might take.